Hello and welcome to Leading Dragons podcast number 6. And hello to Angela. Angela, hello.
Hello, how are you, Deborah?
I'm good. How are you? You're good?
I'm really good. I've got my my favorite orange cup with tea in it. So I'm awesome.
Orange, it. So it's the kind of connection. Okay, so why Leading Dragons? I just want to do a recap of why I'm doing these podcasts, because I'm at podcast number 6 now. And I just want to reiterate that these are not just think tanks. These are not just exchanges where we can just share concepts and build on them. No, this is really about a call to action. And I'm really hoping that as my dear listeners go through and listen from one podcast to the next, that they are able to take away some teaching, some learning, some insights, and that somehow they will be triggered into action. Because as long as we stand still, we cannot move forward. And if there's no movement, there is no change. It's as simple as that. The second reason why I'm creating this series of podcasts is because I really want to create, and very soon I will be, a community of dragons. And that community of dragons will have one sole purpose, which is to provide all the listeners, everybody else who is really keen to move into action and to make that shift, however small or big it is, be given that a space of active support from the dragons. Because moving into action and trying something new is experimenting, and it's always scary to experiment, right? So we're faced with that fear anyway. And if you have that active support from Leading Dragons, well, we have more of a chance collectively of seeing a shift into the workplace. Okay, so today, Angela, I'm so delighted to have you on the show. Angela is the Queen of Possible, and Angela will be, I'm looking forward to hearing all about Queen of Possible, why you're Queen of Possible. Angela and I haven't met yet in person, but we just connected. We have the same dragon energies. We were meant to meet. You have fire, so do I. We have a lot of fire that drives us, that fuels our push. Because we were talking just before I hit the record button, we were talking about pushing the message into society towards you, so that we can collectively make that shift and make that change and see it really happen and not just talk about it. Angela also has an immense sense of urgency. And when I read about that, Angela, in one of your blogs, I was just like, wow, this sounds like I could have written it. I could have written it, because this is a sense of urgency that I've been carrying inside myself for at least a good 5 years. Anyway, enough talking. Over to you, Angela. Tell us why you are Queen of Possible and why you're here today.
Well, Debs, thanks first of all for inviting me on, and I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for creating your dragons community. And you are creating it. It is here, and I am so thrilled to be part of it, because it's like you said, each time you talk I go, oh my goodness, she's speaking my words. So there's this connection that I really appreciate and that I find energizing. And it's so interesting that you say, why am I the Queen of Possible? I'm changing the name of my website. I feel like I've had another shift in the last year or so, and I'm changing it to Wild Spirit. And when you said we have fire, it's like we are fire. And I think that's what we need to, all of us, get back to, who we are, and not just what we have. We have fear, we are fire, we are love. And so Queen of Possible, that started when one of my clients said, you're the Queen of Possible, because I truly believe that nothing is impossible and that everything is possible. And that takes commitment and time and energy, but everything is possible. In a universe, everything is possible. And that became my nickname. And I thought, well, how many other Queens Possibles are there out there? And now it feels like a name that's too solitary And wild spirit is like, there are more of us. Like dragons, there are more of us. It's spreading like wildfire. It's spreading like those flames with the dragon. It's like, it's not about me either. And that's why, so within the next couple of weeks, I'll be having a website name change. But it all started back when I wanted other people to know just how, other women to know in particular, just how possible their leadership was, their dreams were, what they thought impossible was. And it was just this urgency, like you said, it's like, it is possible, and not just a belief, like, I want to show you it's possible, but it is possible. It's coming from inside out. And that's where I am today, moving into wild spirit, because now it's unstoppable.
And I love your spreading like wildfire. I mean, there is, we're hearing more and more about a collective conscience that's rising. More people, and especially this year with the pandemic, we've had that time to slow right down and to start looking inside. And what is it that we have, and how our lifestyle, the lifestyle that we've chosen, how much that reflects or not to our intrinsic values.
Yeah, I really hear that. And what resonates for me when you say that as well is the looking inside, realizing, and I think that's it with COVID in particular, that we don't control anything, and yet everything is still possible. And this, the way the way the world has been organized is I control, and I try and stick with safety all the time. I'm going to try and be biggest and best. And that way, I'll get from the outside what I need from the inside. I'm scared of my own void. I'm scared of who I really am. I'm scared of being too big. I'm so scared that I'm just going to get from the outside. I'll just fill, and I'll make myself bigger. And then I will be so powerful that I won't have to be scared anymore. Only what we've done is completely depleted all of our own energy in the process.
And it just goes back to what you were saying in your introduction, which is, it's who we are, not what we have. And this is a beautiful introduction to my first question to you around the leadership paradigm, because in the Western society, typically, we've been born and bred where success is measured by what? It's measured by fame, by status, by glory, and by money. So our belief systems, from since we were toddlers, they've been cabled in such a way where there's somehow we're thinking, oh my gosh, we're thinking of scarcity all the time. So we always have to strive for more. And so we're ultimately driven by extrinsic values. The way that we judge and perceive ourselves, the way that we judge our worth, the way that we make decisions, these are all kind of measured from the outside in. And so, and how can, before I even move further from that, I'd like to ask you, what role do you think this cabling of our belief systems has had in the crafting of leadership and the way organizations are run today and have been running?
I think that's really interesting. The word you used, crafting, and we discussed it a bit before. Because when we say crafting, to me, it appears like it's conscious, like we've actually consciously made it that way. And yet, most of what I see in leadership is actually unconscious. And it's the macrocosm being a reflection of the microcosm. It's the large being a reflection of the small, a mirror of it. So of course, as we grow in line with our own, I would even say we shrink, in fact, in line with our safety instinct. But as we develop in our, through our childhood, and we develop into adulthood, and we run mostly by our safety instinct, and we are taught to be a certain way to protect ourselves. And we are taught that some parts of ourselves are inappropriate. Some ways of being are inappropriate. Most of our actual essence in some way is inappropriate. And our parents teach us to look after ourselves, and you won't be able to be like that in the outside world and all the rest of it. We learn to shrink. And what we expect then is leadership to keep telling us who we have to be. you know, to keep telling us how we have to be and who we have to be, and just keep feeding me, right? The way I see it. Oh, that was my staff falling over.
Would you like to introduce your staff to us?
I'll show you my staff. Hang on. This is my wise woman staff. It looks very masculine, right? But funnily enough, it's not.
And so, how does that help you? Does it? What does it serve?
You know, it's relatively new in my life, but it's part of an exercise. It's actually an exercise that I'll be giving to some of the participants in one of my leadership, my Wild Spirit leadership community. And if they see this, I'll know it in advance. But it's like a talisman, and it's a ritual as well, and it's a remembering. It's something physical that's used as a remembering of who we are. So that is about the the straightness and the simplicity and the commitment and the integrity of the life energy that we have within us, the leadership energy that we have within us. And this is particularly because of my age, which I am not apologizing for. This is all, I mean, I'm putting it that way so you can actually see it, but it's quite long. I mean, I chose this, and it was for me to go and choose the piece of wood, and it's driftwood. But it's, can't remember quite what I was saying. Yeah, it's a representation to have when we forget our power. And, you know, beforehand I was working on something, and I was like, I've forgotten who I am. I've shifted back into shrinking. Where's my staff? And just the fact that I have it there, it's just this visual reminder. You know, it's easy to shift back into fear all the time. Yeah. We'll be talking about this later, I think. So this is just it's almost a fun reminder. Like, it's like, hey, no, hang on, that's who I am. So
great. That's great.
I'll try not to kick it over.
It's like, it's your friend, isn't it? Your buddy, your working buddy.
It's my working buddy, and it's a representation of my inner mentor, I'd say, as well, the wiser part of me. So that's it. And it's always good to be connected to the wiser part of ourselves.
And we all have something that helps us to ground us and to remind us of our power. So we'll move into that. But just before we do, I'd like to go back a little bit on the question around crafted leadership. And you did question that. And
yes.
You believe that it comes from the unconscious, and that we're brought up to always be reminded of this safety instinct. And I remember my mother, sorry mum, but you know, typically would always, I remember just growing up and hearing, be careful. And so with my two children, when they were growing up, I made sure that I wouldn't say be careful. I just say, watch what you're doing, look where you put your feet if they're climbing a wall, whatever. But this be careful, at least for me, I can't speak for everybody, it was like, oh my gosh, stop what you're doing. And then it goes back to that, you know, shrinking and trying to fit yourself back into your little box, like everyone loves to do typically in organizations. We're going to recruit you, and we're going to stick you right in that box because it's got a label on it. And the label is, I don't know, you know, head of learning and talent development or whatever it is. So it's like, wow, so we are from such a young and vulnerable age, when our belief systems are being founded, we are taught to be careful. Okay, so yeah,
right? Sorry, yeah, in good faith. I mean, it's what parents, they want to protect. They want to. This is what we are as a species. We keep ourselves safe. Systems, I think you're going to say this after, so keep themselves intact. So the idea is to make sure that you're still here, so that, you know, the lineage will still survive. I mean, that's the deep unconscious fear, right? Keep it going. So look after yourself. What will people think? You got to be careful. I got, what will people think?
Yeah.
All the time. What will other people think? What will other people think? It's like, oh my God. So, I mean, you think of all these organizations with people walking around all the time unconsciously, boxing themselves in with respect to what other people will be thinking. Yeah. And I mean, you know, there's a lot, people can Google all this, there's a lot on that, but it's, but, you know, so I think, yeah, leadership is a reflection of already who we are. So, I mean, each person that we are creates a leadership, like you said, crafted. It does. The leadership reflects who all of the people in the organization as well.
And it's supporting a system,
and
it's supporting the culture which is an independent entity of itself within a given organization. And you know, and their leadership codes, unspoken codes, obviously. And so you watch and learn, and then you pick it up because you're in that safety instinct like you're just talking about. So let's copy paste and do, you know, like we're told, or how we see other people behave, especially if I want to be going up the ladder and get that promotion next year, whatever it is. Leading Dragons is all about shifting the leadership paradigm from a place of fear to a place of love. So if I was, yesterday when I was contemplating this podcast with you, I kind of just drew a line right across my page, excuse me, right across my page. And at one end I put fear, and I put at the opposite end of that line, I put love. And if we think about it, you know, there's this spectrum where we can place people who we know, you know, at work and outside work, right across this scale. I know people who function purely from a space of love, but not sadly, it's just the way it is. It takes a lot of shedding of the fear, of fear layers, the layers and layers and layers of fear of being careful, and of our belief systems, our old self-limiting beliefs that keep us in the fear space rather than enable us to move into the love space. So would you like to tell us a little more, Angela, on wild spirits, fear and love, and what we were talking about is everything around ego, and where does ego sit, do you reckon?
I love this topic. I mean, it's inexhaustible. We could spend hours on it, but I think the first thing to say is love is who we are. Not it's an emotion, but it's fundamentally who we are and where we come from. And fear is a construct. Fear is you know what we're taught, but it's also it's part of the ego makeup, right? But love is far bigger than that. And so fear, you know, comes from our little amygdala, and comes from the, you know, injections of hormones into us, like watch out. The fear is so limited to flight, fight or freeze, and all the rest of that sort of thing. It shrinks us, but it's a construct. It's in us in terms of ego, and then we learn to listen to that first, particularly with respect to our parents. But love is who we are, like creativity, like generosity, like brilliance, like strength. This is who we are. And what happens is we get disconnected from it. So every time, like you said, you're right, it is a constant practice of coming back. So it's interesting because I noticed that when I read, when I work with my own clients, but also when I read a lot about leadership, it's like you have to learn something. People are trying to get somewhere and learn something from the outside. Learn one more technique to deal with their fear. Learn one more thing and then we'll be all right, okay? I just have to get better. I have to self-develop. I have to get towards something. And what you said was so key. It's a shedding. It's a coming back to. And I think what we need to do as well is not make fear wrong. Because when we start making fear wrong, then it starts becoming an issue. But get curious about it. Get to know it. Like I know every time it's like, oh, I have fear here. Then I can start laughing because it's like, well, that's an indication that I'm in my ego. That I'm in this ego structure that's been developed so that I could be a human being functioning in the world. And high fear, it's okay. I can connect to what's far more powerful inside me, which is who I am, which is love. And I'm going to get my work done a lot more effectively that way and have far more a sense of expansion. And with that sense of expansion rather than contraction, there are more opportunities open to me. So ego, what do you say? It's part of being human. Everyone develops an ego. And if we spend our time trying to get rid of our ego, then we're looking the wrong way as well. So what I hear is like, hey, I have fear. That's part of being human. I don't need to let it run me. I need to let it show me the direction I should be going. It's like, the louder my alarm bells are sounding, the more I need to be going that way. Unless if it's caused straight into a saber-toothed tiger, but there aren't that many around these days. So.
Exactly. And somebody said to me the other day, well, when you're operating from a place of fear, life happens to you. Whereas if you're operating from a place of love, life happens for you. And I would like to talk about, because the word love, I like to put it with a capital L, because it starts with self-love, doesn't it? And love comes from the heart. And the heart is, in French we call it cœur. And cœur is it's the root word of courage, which is fearlessness. So it is actually at the opposite end of fear. And what is it? Rather than, I think it's all about what we say. You know, whatever you focus on expands. If you focus on your fear and you focus on, oh my gosh, this is going to happen, and you know, life's happening to me, and I'm a victim in this situation. I'm stuck. Oh, I need to get another certification or another qualification. I need to upskill even more because I'm not perfect, and I'm never going to make it to wherever I want to go. These are all sort of, it's like, you know, like you say, Angela, it's like, let's get curious. Why are we having this inner dialogue? You know, why are we choosing not to move forward? And we're choosing through excuses, through a million reasons, through overthinking, through staying stuck. And rather than focusing on that, what about going, okay, actually, I want to try this, but it is indeed a mindset shift, because life only happens for you to those who are ready to take the risk. Life happens for you for those who are ready to step right outside their comfort zone and detach themselves from an expected outcome. Because until you are attached, or one is attached to an outcome, there's no way that we can move into the love space and start functioning from a place of power, and we'll be moving on to power.
Yeah, I so get that. I think there's another saying that I really love, is that fear and love can't ride the same horse. They don't exist in the same space. If you keep connecting to fear, I mean, I know this sounds really awful, and it's not judgmental. It actually comes from a place of compassion. That's a shitty life to lead. I mean, how worth it is to have all of these amazing things if every day you wake up and all you're doing is striving to get it, so you don't, you know, so that you're obeying your fear, and so that you don't have whatever repercussions that you're imagining you might have in living the bigger life you want to live. And the other thing is that, you know, the more you look your fear in the face, like you're talking about fearlessness. I guess I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. Fear is with me all the time. Fear, every time I want to step into something bigger. So I'm assuming that it's the same for everyone else. But in any case, it's there. I do a lot of stuff with courage, rarely with fearlessness, until it's not about me. And I think that's what's really important as well. When we come back to ego, we make it all about little me, and then I'm scared. When we talk about what is this thing that's coming through me that needs to come into the world, and I notice I'm really pointing at all my energies coming up, like you were speaking about before with leading dragons, it's not about me anymore. And then that's when the love and everything comes through, and we're not in little me, oh, what's going to happen? It's like, this is too important to make it about me. And then you start stepping in, and then your power comes in. Yeah. And then there's you know, it's bigger than you. It is bigger than you. I know my eyes are like this right now.
You're giving me goosebumps. Yes.
Yeah, but it's a choice. You either choose to shrink and live with your excuses and keep, you know, the voice of fear is sometimes not big alarm bells, but this rational voice of saying, oh, you're not really going to do that. Yeah. You know, why would you do that? I mean, it sneaks in on us, okay? It's not always, you know, the ones. Like I've done some pretty hairy things in my life as well. I've done bungee jumps, and I knew that I was going to be I mean, I felt sick before I did it. That sort of fear you can sort of sometimes look at and reason, but the really subtle voices of, oh, you know, maybe I shouldn't, you know, that sort of thing, they're so easy to not take heed of. And I think you have to be really present and say, how do I keep shooting myself in the foot from doing these bigger things that I want to do? What are the voices that show up? How does fear show up for me? And my heart will still be beating, and I'll be noticing. And that was the other thing as well, being really present to yourself. What is happening in me? You're right, it's so heart-based, and we're all up here. All these people are walking around up here, and also trying to like get something from the outside. Like if I just learn about fear, then I'll be fine. If I just learn about love, then I'll understand it more. And once I've understood it, and you can't get this by thinking it. You can only get it by being with it and being it and going through it and taking the actions and holding the fear with you. And that is, you know, it's not just the Nelson Mandelas and the Martin Luther Kings and the Mother Teresas and the Michelle Obamas. And I'm thinking of, I've run out of names all of a sudden. I always do this. It's like, oh my God, who are the women? And there are so many, like, so shame. But it's everybody has this capacity. Every single human being has the capacity to drop their victim excuse and to drop their, I have to stay in this box. They can reconnect with their heart and their belly and move forward.
I'd like to go back into organisations, and I'd like to ask you, Angela, why do you think that there's still that overarching culture of power, greed and entitlement prevailing pretty much, you know, right across the world? Why is that still today?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. People aren't doing the work. This is inner work. And, you know, like I said, there's a lot of, and I'm not going to disparage, because I think that it's part of the process, right? The world is evolving. I sometimes laugh when we say how evolved we are as humans, because there's still this I think, therefore I am thing, which is like, come on, you know, we once believed the world was flat. Are we not over that yet? We're past it. It's also, it's a breathe, therefore I am. I'm connected, therefore I am. I have a heart, therefore I am, not just I think. And part of that is because we're still in this mental paradigm of trying to figure it out, and not enough people are doing the work. And that's where the urgency is. It's like not enough people recognize their spirit, that they are spirit. And I know we're going to talk about spirituality in this now, but it's like we are spirit, having a human experience, and we are an integral part of a whole. And while we are still operating as separate individuals, as if we were disconnected from everything else, we're going to continue the greed paradigm, because we're going to think we're on our own. We're acting out of scarcity, and we're going to just keep accumulating. And also, there's something in this, and this is a lot of the work that I've done, and that's the shadow work. Not only people who do, I'll do the work. I want to learn about my strengths, and I do a lot of strengths-based work with people, and a lot of, you know, a powerful I am statement that really looks into who we are. But if we don't do the shadow work, we will always have the shadow coming out. It will, everything leaks. What you can't be with and you can't look at in yourself, you will either attract or leak out. And that's just it. All of these 3-year-olds up there running organizations because they can't listen, you know, they haven't been able to listen to themselves. They don't recognize their inner 3-year-old having a tantrum. They don't recognize their inner Jabba the Hutt that just wants to, like, you know, eat everything, consume. And so they're not conscious and they're not present and they're not doing the work. That's my take on it.
So they're not doing the work, and so you, Angela, you've tapped into your power, your inner power. So what did it take for you to tap into that power? And I think this is about sharing your story, if you will, but also to trigger people to start looking in the right direction.
It's really interesting. I would love to trigger people to look in the right direction. Sometimes I want to shake people, right? It's like, for God's sake, it's just there in front of you. Wake up. And you can't force people to wake up. I think it was your amazing dragon from the last podcast who said the same thing. You can't. And I so earnestly wish people could, because when you are in your power, I'm going to say it, you're fucking unstoppable. It doesn't matter anymore what people think of you. And yet you care more for them. So it's not about caring, not caring about anything. It's about caring more, but being less attached to the superfluous and superficial, what somebody else might think, for example, that we're run by. And you asked about me being in my power. It's being in power, and it's constant work. It is not, oh ho, here I am in my power now, and you know, it's over and done with. It's over and done with when you're dead. That's it. Like I know that sounds really brutal, but it's constant work. But the more you do it, the more amazing it is, and the more fully, the more. I mean, I've always loved life, but I still lived it from the outside in. And the more you live it from the inside out, the stronger, more powerful, more connected, more fulfilling, more amazing it is. The more you are, and the more amazing it is to be alive. And to me, that's success. Now, and then of course the rest of it goes with it. When you start feeling like that, and not just like, oh, I feel good today or bad today. I still have up and down days. It's often related to what I'm believing about a particular moment. So also this work that I'm talking about gives you the capacity to be with whatever's happening, and actually have more discernment and more distinction, and live life with more color, and live with more subtlety, and like, oh, I'm feeling like this. Oh God, here we go. I've got these thoughts again. So it's not about replacing it with positive thoughts. It's about noticing how I'm disempowering myself. What's more true? What's my commitment right now? Where, you know, what am I choosing to believe? Why would I believe that? Okay, that's just a thought. And to give power back to what else is here. Okay, and be with it and move forward.
Yeah, and it's claiming back your power. So either you are beneath somebody, you know, and you are allowing their power to define you, or you can choose to claim back your power. And it
Everyone.
Yeah, and it is very much a question of balance. It's not about throwing the baby away with the bathwater. It's not about that. It's work, and like you say, it's every single day. It's working through it and dancing with it, balancing. It's an art. It's a fine art. But the more we start stepping into our power, the further we want to go, and the more powerful we do feel, because we're no longer defined from extrinsic measures and extrinsic values. We are defining ourselves from the inside, and the feeling is I mean, it's completely different. You're in a different place. You're completely in a different place.
You live life more multi-dimensionally than two-dimensionally. And I mean, 13 years ago, oh, actually even more than that, I think it's a Brené Brown moment. And I won't go into all the details, but I remember coming home, I'd just come home from dropping the kids off at school and think about working. And so this is me, positive, right? Mrs. Positive. And I'd sit on the couch and cry and not know why I was crying. So not understand, because I had everything. I had 3 children. I had a marriage. I had a beautiful house with a pool. I had all of these great things. Everything was wonderful. And inside I was just like, what's going on? So of course, me in complete denial. Oh, it must be just hormonal. So, and that's what we do, right? We dismiss whatever's going on. We dismiss it, especially in women. Oh, hormones, that's what it must be. It's nothing. And anyway, to cut a long story short, this thing happened to me. It was a moment. It was this, I felt a flame, and that's funny why it's become, like spreads like wildfire in a flame. And it was the only voice I heard was, this isn't who you are. That's all. And I just got this idea to go away for a weekend by myself. I took my guitar. At the time, I took music, I meditated, I told the people I was, I got a gîte, told the people I was staying with that I just wanted to be delivered one food tray and a bottle of wine for the 2 nights, and that was it. And don't come and see me, I'm fine. And in that moment was when I really reconnected with my deeper self. And we have a deeper self, and we don't speak about this enough. We are a deeper self, in fact. And I noticed that we talk about it, but we talk about it from the outside in as well. And it's all touchy-feely to get there. And it's like, oh, I'm going to become all mushy. And it's not at all that. You become stronger, more powerful, the closer you get to that inside. And anyway, long story short, that started my spiritual, I was going to say quest, but it's not. So it was a quest. It's not anymore, because once upon a time I wanted to get somewhere. I wanted to feel better. And now I don't want to feel worse or better. I want to feel what is. And the more you are with what is, the more power you have. And I don't have to make it different anymore.
Yeah, that's acceptance.
Completely. But it's not resignation. It's acceptance and surrender. And I mean, this is probably really abstract for people, because they're not saying, you know, how to do it and all the rest of it, but it's a personal process, and it means going in and, you know, sitting with all the hard stuff, all the things we don't want to know about ourselves, as well as all the positive things. Yeah.
Angela, you value particularly women in leadership. Why is this so important to you?
It started when I was working at UNESCO. And I was working in women's empowerment programs and, you know, women's and girls' education. And it struck me as, odd is a word, but it's very minimal compared to what I really feel. It's like, why is it that we are still finding it normal to write sensitization campaigns and to put them into practice to convince men that their girls have value? Now, the masculine and the feminine has equal value to me. And I know that I'm representing women as the feminine, and that's not entirely true. We have masculine and feminine in each of us. But while on a surface outside world level, women and men as they are, and non-gender as well, but there's some sort of like imbalance between us. We will never get to any sort of harmony in the world. And I was just sitting there going, why do we needing to convince men that women are valuable? What is that about? That's just wrong. I mean, it was just wrong. So I work with women now because there is such an imbalance. And, you know, a lot of people say, oh, it's sexist, and why don't you work with men? And it's like, well, because I don't want to. And that's fine. There are other people who can. I want to work with women. There's an imbalance, a big imbalance. And while, I mean, not a lot of men are really in their power either, but while women aren't in their power and we are not cultivating women in leadership, the world will never come into balance. So that's why it's sort of wrong. That's my reason. And I can go into patriarchy and hierarchy and you know, we really can. And I know this, you know, we could go into the whole discussion and debate about it. And, you know, we have how many thousands of years has history been manipulated and you know, have men been in power? And I don't want to make men wrong, because I do love men, and I think masculine energy is vitally important, but the feminine energy and the feminine and women have been so downtrodden that that's just not acceptable. I won't accept it, and that's it. So I work with women. Yeah.
And I'm listening to you, and I've just got the yin yang, you know, symbol that appears to me, because we are complementary, and you know, we need equal opportunity, and that's going to bring, you know, if everyone was to believe that and to behave in such a way, we would have diversity much more diversity at the table, which is diversity of thought, which would bring creativity to the table, innovative ideas, solutions, and agility, especially in these times of the global pandemic.
And And also, yeah, like you said, I'm just imagining the yin yang symbol with one side like completely bigger than the other. I mean, what would that look like? Just like tiny little color.
Yes, gosh, yeah. Something
And
on a new website.
yeah, I could. But there's also there's something in the feminine, you know, which is, because we talk about empathy and compassion, they're not feminine characteristics, they are human characteristics. But if we talk about the sacred masculine and sacred feminine, feminine is receptivity and surrender, as well as, you know, strength is in both of us. But there's something like we distort surrender as being weakness. We distort surrender as being something that we need to keep away from because we'll lose ourselves. And that's what's really important, to go into the void. And yeah, so that's a sort of a digression, but yeah, I just think that women, while we are not owning our power, and you know, our voices have been cut, we've been witch hunted and burnt at stakes, and I know men were too, actually burnt at stakes, but it's like the feminine voice has been squashed, to put it nicely, and it's time to resurrect it so that we can bring some balance.
So reclaiming the feminine power, both women and men. Wow, yeah. Angela, transformation doesn't happen. So if transformation doesn't happen, but it starts from inside, where can we start?
Where can we start? Start by not trying to do it on your own, because it doesn't work. We all have blind spots, and we have a fabulous system put in place that means that we will not be able to see our own blind spots. You know, like I think my coach puts it as, you can't bite your own teeth. So we can't see, you know, what our blind spots are. And it's really important to get help. And that can be, for some people, a psychologist or therapy. For others, it can be a coach. But if you keep thinking that you can do this on your own, you're barking up the wrong tree. It's not going to work. So first of all, we have to start by admitting that we need other people. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, we need trained professionals as well, because our friends don't help us see our own blind spots. They're part of them. They're wonderful and they're necessary, and I love my friends. But yeah, so that's the first thing we do. And recognize that the other thing we can start with is, you know, we accept so much in our lives. We accept not feeling powerful. We accept not feeling great. We think that's just normal. To feel not so much energy, that's just part of life. It's not. It's how we create it. It's how we create our lives. So start tapping into what your energy is. And I know you went through that as well. And I went through that, and it's like thinking, oh, well, and just reasoning away why, you know, what I was feeling, which was like, if you're feeling disempowered and dragging your feet, it's not always because you're telling yourself a story about, you know, about work. It's because there's something wrong. Look at it and go and do something about it, and go and empower yourself. Yeah.
Great. Okay, Angela, that's beautiful. So I'm moving over to our dear listeners, because this has been fantastic. Angela, thank you so much with all these nuggets. What is it that resonated with you? What is it? Angela talks about fire. So have we tapped into our inner fire? We could start from there. And it's not about, or is it up to you, for each one of us to decide? Do you define yourself with what you have, or would you like to choose to define yourself with who you are? And such a discovery is a long process. You said it's throughout life, and it's so beautiful. And as it unfolds, and we shed all these levels of, or these I should say layers of fear, and we move into the loving part, the courageous, the fearlessness part of life, things take on a whole new light. Angela, you talked about leadership, that the paradigm, the broken paradigm, the traditional paradigm, is actually unconscious. So how much, you know, and it's that time to think, to slow down. It's a beautiful invitation to go, well, what is it? How each one of us, how are we actually behaving? And is that really reflecting the person that we are, or the person that we want to be? Is it reflecting the legacy that we want to leave behind? So don't be careful. You know, let's not even hear that anymore. Let's not focus on our fear. Let's focus on what is it we want to be, not what is it that we don't want to be. And it goes back to that focus. Angela talked about that eventually, because love is actually going back to source. So love is who we are, versus fear, which is a construct, something that we created on this in this earthly life. So, you know, it's about finding your tribe, finding a tribe inside your organization, also finding your tribe outside, and your tribe, which is not necessarily your friends and family, but people who you'll connect with and who you'll start vibrating with on the right, on the same frequency, just like you and I, Angela.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
No, I was listening to you.
Okay, great. No, is there any last message that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Yes. Yeah, just actually there were two, but it's gone back to one. It's it's what you want to create. Tap into what you want to create, not just who you want to be, as well as who you want to be, rather than minimizing that. And the other thing is, you are the leader. You are the leader. Leadership is in your hands, whoever you are. The hierarchical construct that we've built is just a construct. You create your life. You are the leader, and you create your leadership. You just have to make the decision.
That's beautiful. Angela, thank you so much. Thank you, Dragon.
Thank you, Dragon. This is awesome.
And I'll see you soon.
Look forward to it.